want to talk about the concerns the U.S. government has, and specifically about the deteriorating state of religious freedom in mainland China. Over the last few years, we have seen increasing Chinese government persecution of religious believers from many faiths and from all parts of the mainland, and the world is taking notice. Let me start in Xinjiang, Uyghur Autonomous Region. It is alarming that the Chinese government authorities have arbitrarily detained members of Muslim minority groups in internment camps for reasons including common religious practices such as having a beard, wearing a veil, attending services, observing Ramadan, sharing religious writings, or even praying. Since April 2017, mainland authorities have detained more than 1 million ethnic Muslims. They have targeted and forcibly relocated to internment camps Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and members of other Muslim minority groups. Family members do not know the whereabouts of their loved ones or even whether they are dead or alive. The Trump administration is deeply concerned and considers this oppression a deliberate attempt by Beijing to redefine and control members of these Muslim minority groups' identity, culture, and faith. Now, China describes these sprawling camps with guard towers and barbed wires as simply vocational training centers. I believe we need to call these camps what they are. They're internment camps, created to wipe out the cultural and religious identity of minority communities. Numerous reports indicate that mainland authorities force innocent people into these camps, often based primarily on their religious beliefs and ethnic identity. The international community is seeing this, and the international press is covering it. I just read 2 articles this past weekend, one in the New York Times and one in Washington Post about it. They're then held in these camps for an indeterminate amount of time and subjected to physical and psychological torture, intense political indoctrination, and forced labor. In November, a survivor of one of these camps told the U.S. Congress that she was brutally tortured and witnessed at least 9 other innocent women in her cell die in just a few months. The same woman was separated from her triplets, and tragically, one of her children died while being held in Chinese government custody. Beyond the camps, the Chinese government also represses people in Xinjiang, restricting travel, monitoring their every move by using a high-tech Orwellian surveillance system, and banning certain religious practices. The government even bans children from participating in religious services and prohibits parents from naming their children common Islamic names. Now, China has long used its economic weight to silence criticism of its severe human rights abuses. I applaud the countries that have spoken out against China's abuses in Xinjiang. Turkey recently issued a strong condemnation of the human rights crisis there. More countries should do so. China justifies its use of internment camps and other repressive practices by claiming that it is rooting out terrorism preemptively. But China is not solving a terrorist problem by forcing and forcibly moving women, children, and the elderly, and the highly educated intelligentsia into mass detention centers and internment camps. Instead, they are creating one. The magnitude of these detentions is completely out of proportion to any real threat China faces from extremism. Even according to China's own official media and police reports, Xinjiang had not even reported a large-scale extremist incident for more than a year and a half before the detentions expanded after March of 2017. Rather, the Chinese government actions are intended to ensure that distinct ethnic and religious peoples are brutally and forcefully controlled. Why? Because they're different. Based on the testimony of survivors, it is clear that China's misguided and cruel policies in Xinjiang are creating resentment, hatred, division, poverty, and anger. To use a Chinese official's own words, this is essentially fertilizing the soil that breeds terrorism.